Yeah, we're streaming. Wow.
Wow.
Wow. Wow, we're streaming.
Wow.
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 So stupid. Oh, shoot. I forgot to open up all the tabs that I'm going to need. Let me do that real quick so I can read the news. The news, Sonny. Get my newspaper, boy.
Let's see. We got the Pokemans and the Switch.
All right. I'll let you start with that since you're the Pokemon
With the Pokemon?
guy. Yeah, the Pokemans.
Okay.
And then we'll move on from there.
Wow.
Wow. All right, here we go. You ready?
Sure.
All righty. In 3, 2, 1. This episode of the Nerd Cave Retro is brought to you by Audible.com. Get a free audiobook download and a free 30-day trial at audibletrial.com/nerdcave. So go get yourself a book. Over 180,000 of them to choose from for your iPhone, Android, Kindle, or MP3 player.
You're listening to the Nerd Cave Network.
Greetings, programs, and welcome back to another episode of the Nerd Cave Retro Show. My name is Jason Robbins.
And I'm Derek Diamond.
It's been so long since we've spoken, Derek.
I know. I couldn't take it anymore. We just had to do another episode.
So last episode we just recorded, and we're immediately recording another one. So if you want to listen to what we did this last week, go listen to that episode, episode 86. As far as this episode, anything you want to talk about before we launch right into the news for this week?
Well, a funny little side note, when you were doing for those who are watching the video version, when you were doing the Audible read, I was like lip syncing to try and match you.
Oh, yeah.
But you went off script and I was like, damn it.
Well, I know. I was paying too much attention because we had so much trouble with the with the soundboard last episode. I was like paying too much attention to the soundboard to make sure that the volume didn't like crank all the way up. So I was like reading it. I was like kind of half reading it and trying to go from memory, but then like I forgot what I was saying, like where I was at, so I completely went off script and don't remember what I said at all. So I'm gonna have to go back and listen.
No, it was pretty funny just because I always try and do something silly on the video version, and
yeah,
like about halfway through the read, you went off script, and I was like, son of a bitch.
Because I was reading it, and then I realized I wasn't paying attention to what I was saying, and I got completely lost where I was at in the read. So I was like, oh, mama, go get yourself a book.
But no, other than that, I'm good.
That's called professional podcast right there. That's what that is. Professional podcasting.
You gotta love improv.
But let's go ahead and improv ourselves into the news. What do you say?
Let's do it. Our first story comes to us from Polygon.com. Pokemon Quest is a free-to-start action game for the Nintendo Switch. The Switch version is out now, with mobile editions on the way. A new Pokemon game is available as of May 29th, and it's free to download for Nintendo Switch. It's called Pokemon Quest, and based on what we've seen so far, it's really unlike any Pokemon game we've seen before. The Pokemon Company revealed the title during a press conference held live in Japan. The action game takes place in a world called Tumble Cube Island, where voxel-style Pokemon roam for treasure, food, and friendly fights. There are base camps that players can customize and build, which help them attract new Pokemon to add to their team. From there, trainers take a set of 3 monsters to battle, albeit not using the familiar turn-based combat of other Pokemon RPGs. Instead, the game limits players' control of their own Pokemon to tapping attack meters once they're full. Otherwise, the Pokemon go at it on their own. I had no idea this was coming out.
No, I didn't
This
either.
is actually kind of interesting.
And they have actually, there are 3 downloadable content packs currently available for it, ranging in price from $4.99 to $17.99. Did you read this part? Because this is actually an update to the article.
I did not. Yeah, I'm reading that. Let's see. There are 3 downloadable content packs currently available for the game. There's the $4.99 Expedition Pack. Excuse me. That includes cooking pot, increases the number of dishes you can cook at the same time by 1. A Pokeball model and a perfect pair statue increases the maximum battery charges by 1. $9.99 is Great Expedition Pack, and the $17.99 Ultra Expedition Pack includes those said things, the Gengar balloon, which doubles the drop rate of all ingredients, the Snorlax Lounger doubles the EXP received from expeditions, and includes some one-time bonuses as well. Looking at the screen caps, the graphic style is interesting. I think they said it was called voxel style, which I never knew what the name of it was until now.
It looks like Minecraft.
It does. I don't know that I'll get this game. I definitely want to watch the video because, like I said, I didn't even know about this until I just opened the article. But I'd be interested to see at least what it's like. I mean, I don't know that I would actually, throw down the money to buy it, but it looks kind of cool.
Well, yeah, I mean, when they say free to start, like, what does that mean exactly? Like, if you don't want to buy any of the DLC packs, do you still get to play the game like indefinitely, or is there like a time limit? Like,
that's because the free to start term is. That kind of tells me that maybe that's the case.
Yeah,
I mean, I don't want to say for sure because I have no idea, but
because you've got your games like Heroes of the Storm and things like that, which are completely free to play. You can spend money on like cosmetic items. I guess it's a lot like Fortnite and things like that, which are free to play. But then this doesn't say free to play; it says free to start. So that doesn't necessarily mean free to play.
Yeah, I don't know. I'll have to watch this video when we're done because I'm very interested in this.
So we'll take a look at this and we'll come back next week and Derek will have a little bit more to say about it.
Yep.
Ooh, my mouse is going crazy. Oh, stop that. From The Verge, TheVerge.com, the Nintendo Switch has an eclectic summer lineup to keep you busy until Super Smash Brothers. The Nintendo Switch is experiencing a bit of a lull at the moment following the console's inaugural year, which had Super Mario Odyssey and Legend of Zelda. Fans have had to settle for only a handful of new games. Those have included games like Mario plus Rabbids, Kirby Star Allies, and some enhanced Wii U games, ports like Donkey Kong Country, Tropical Freeze, and Stardew Valley. But it's clear that Nintendo fans are waiting for the next big thing, which that happens to be Super Smash Brothers, that's slated for release later this year. But thankfully, they have a summer lineup that's shaping up to be a highly eclectic array of genres and playstyles. Let's see, there is the company organized some hands-on demo time with Mario Tennis Aces, Octopath Traveler, and Splatoon 2's Octo expansion. They make a strong case for the Switch's well-rounded offerings from sports to hardcore Japanese role-playing games to hybrid platform shooter combos. Let's see, Mario Tennis Aces is going to be coming out June 22nd. It will be the next installment in Nintendo's long-running Mario-themed sports series. Pretty much what you expect, Mario characters playing tennis in increasingly elaborate fashions. I'm not really a sports game guy, so that one's going to kind of pass me by. Octopath Traveler, which actually looks kind of cool from the screenshots here. It's a Japanese role-playing game in the vein of PlayStation classics like Saga Frontier and Final Fantasy, but with dashes of modern RPG game design, courtesy of Bravely Default producer Tomoya Asano. The result is an experience understandably serving up nostalgia, but one that doesn't feel bogged down by the sometimes tiresome convention of the PS1 era games it's based. I might actually try out a demo of this, which it actually has that 16-bit look, but
Yeah.
more of an updated 16-bit look. Like, it's kind of weird. You just have to kind of look at it and see. Like, it's very HD. Like, you can tell it's a new game, but the characters themselves look 16-bit in a 3D world. Like, it has a really cool look to it. Splatoon 2 Octo expansion for those of you who like Splatoon 2. It adds 80 new single-player campaign missions that rethink how you make use of the game's abilities and shooting mechanics. Excuse me. These missions turn Splatoon 2 into a platforming game asking players to traverse complex environments under strict time limits and with little margin for error. That sounds kind of cool, even though I've never played Splatoon 2. But yeah, I mean, there's good stuff coming out for the Switch this summer. Like I said on the last episode, I just picked up Bloodstained, Curse of the Moon for $10 on the Switch store. If you got $10 to spend and you're a Castlevania fan, that is a no-brainer to go pick that game up. And that just released like a couple of days ago, so it's fresh. It's freshy fresh.
Nice. Yeah, I'm actually intrigued by this Octopath Traveler game because the graphics, like the characters remind me of like a Secret of Mana or Secret of Evermore game.
It looks like the characters from Chrono Trigger almost.
Yeah, but the environment is 3D.
Yeah.
It seems like a game that would be up my alley. And I don't know that I'll get Mario Tennis because I haven't played the first Mario Tennis game I think was N64. Then they did a Game Boy version. I played both of those, but I haven't played one, since then. Like there are some sports games that I like, but for the most part, I just don't really have the time to play them.
Yeah,
but
I don't blame you. I'm not a sports game fan at all. Like I don't think there's anything they could put out besides, like, I mean, unless you consider Mario Kart a sports game. Like, I don't play any sports games.
Yeah. And the Splatoon 2 expansion pack, I'll get at some point because I really like that game, and I think adding some more into the single player campaign, I think is really good of them to do, and the platforming aspect of it, I think, could add a whole new dynamic to it.
I've never played Splatoon, so
it's really good.
I'm gonna have to get that and try it.
It's really good.
I've heard it's really good, and I like a good first-person, like a fun kind of first-person shooter that's not all serious like Call of Duty or something. So I think that might actually be a good pickup for me to pick that up because I look for some good stuff to play with my wife because, Mario Kart gets old after a while.
Yeah. No, I think you'd like it. It's a lot of fun.
But that does it for the news for this week. Let's go ahead and move into this month in video game history. In, June of 1979, Texas Instruments releases the TI-99-4, the first home computer with a 16-bit processor. Let's see what this bad boy has to offer. Oh my gosh. That is 70s as you can get right there. That looks like yeah. That is some 70s tech right there.
And when I think of Texas Instruments, I think of the because they made like graphing calculators, or they make graphing calculators that I had to use in college.
Yeah, I remember I had to buy one for college, and this was back in the 90s, and I think it was like $50 at the time. I'm like, I got to spend that money on a freaking calculator that I'm going to use for one semester. I ended up keeping that calculator for like 15 years, and it still worked.
That's awesome. Yeah, mine was a little more pricey than that. It's laying around here somewhere, but because I still kept it.
It might have been more expensive than that. I don't remember exactly. I just remember looking at the price of it and just being like, holy crap.
Yeah.
But it says this was released in 1981 at a price of $525, $1,400 adjusted for inflation. It is an enhanced version of the less successful TI-99/4 model, which was released in late 79 at a price of $1,150, $3,900 adjusted for inflation. Both models include support for sprites and multi-channel sound, some of the first home computers to include such custom hardware alongside the Atari 8-bit family, also introduced in 1989. Let's see. It had a memory of 256 bytes. I don't know what the scratch pad means, but it had 16 kilobytes of RAM. So, sound like it was good for the time. Maybe.
Yeah. Something like that.
Yeah.
In June of 1981, Konami releases Frogger.
Yes, I love Frogger so much.
Oh, Frogger's fun. Who doesn't like Frogger?
Still one of the greatest. Like, that's still probably one of my favorite Atari 2600 games. Like, one of the best Atari 2600 games you could get. That was a pretty good port of the actual arcade version.
Mm-hmm. I used to have this game for the they ported it over to the Game Boy, and this was perfect if you had like a 15-20 minute trip, and you were like me and you just couldn't put a video game down. it was perfect for something like that. Frogger's great. I can't say enough good things about it.
I'm surprised they haven't tried to make like an updated version of Frogger, but make it like, you know, a Mario style open world 3D game where you're playing the frog.
That would be the best selling game of all time.
Oh, it would. Also,
move over Breath of the Wild.
In June of 81, Ultima is released. Yay! Guess what? We just talked about Ultima the last episode and the episode before that. Beginning a successful computer role-playing game series. I would say so. Because they made about 800 of them.
Oh, just in Ultima 801 just released for the Switch.
802 just released moments ago.
What?
Yeah.
Breaking news.
Let's see. We'll scroll down here. What were you going to say?
I'm interested about Ultima. Like, we talk about it so much. Like, this is kind of the Mega Man thing all over again, where we just kept talking about it, where I was like, okay, I'll finally play it.
Yeah. I don't know if there's I've never played an Ultima game. Ever.
I haven't either. I have to look and see what consoles they're available for.
Yeah, I'm going to have to look at just, you know, was there an Ultima NES game? Let me look that up real quick. Ultima, I'm sure there was.
There has to be.
Oh, of course there was. Let's see. Yep, I remember this game, but I think I did play this. This looks very
Which version
familiar.
was for the NES?
Ultima Exodus. Let's see.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Ultima 3 Exodus. The third game in the series of Ultima role-playing games. Let's see. Let me click on the wiki here. Exodus is also the name of the game's principal protagonist. It is the final installment in the Age of Darkness trilogy. Released in 1983, it was the first Ultima game published by Origin Systems, originally developed for the Apple II. It was eventually ported to 13 other platforms, including a Nintendo Entertainment System remake.
Interesting.
This was put out on a lot of stuff. The Amiga, the Apple II, Atari 800, Atari ST, Commodore 64, MS-DOS, FM7, Macintosh, MSX2, NES, NEC PC, the NEC PC 9801 and 8801, and the Sharp X1. That's a lot of ports of a game. So it must have done really well. Which I would say so.
There is a Super NES Ultima as well, Ultima 7.
Wow. All right, let's not get into Final Fantasy territory here.
Anyway, in June of 1995, Earthbound, also known as Mother 2 in Japan, is a 1994 Japanese role-playing video game co-developed by Ape Inc. and HAL Laboratory and published by Nintendo for the SNES video game console. And it was released in North America June 5th, 1995.
One of your favorite games.
Yep. This would be... If I were to make a list of my favorite SNES games, this would probably be top 3. I really, really like this game a lot. It's really well made. The graphics are unique for the Super NES, in my opinion. The story is very good. And the way it's made, and I mentioned this, I mean, you can go back to one of the early episodes and listen to my review, but it's almost like a satire of Western culture.
Yeah.
Which I think is kind of a unique thing, but absolutely love Earthbound. Top 3 SNES game and probably top 10 all-time favorite video game for me. I love Earthbound.
Did you see that the Angry Video Game Nerd did an Earthbound episode not too long ago?
Mm-mm.
You need to see that episode.
Let me write that down.
Yep. Very good episode. I highly recommend it. You can actually watch AVGN on Amazon Prime now, if you have Amazon Prime. So that's worth noting. To round us out for this month in video game history, on June 5th, 1995, Street Fighter Alpha Warriors Dreams is a fighting game by Capcom, originally released for the arcade for the CP System 2 hardware. It was the first all-new Street Fighter game produced by Capcom since the release of Street Fighter 2 in 1991. The working title for the game was Street Fighter Legends. Do you remember this game at all?
I do not.
Let me see here.
I mean, I remember Street Fighter and Street Fighter 2 Turbo, but not Street Fighter Alpha.
I don't even think there's a Wikipedia page for this. Oh, yeah, there is. Let's see. Introduces several new features, expanding on the Super Combo system previously featured in the Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo. Let's see. Plot of Street Fighter Alpha is set after the original Street Fighter, but before Street Fighter 2, and thus the game features younger versions of established characters, as well as characters from the original Street Fighter and Final Fight, and a few who are new to the series. That was another thing I wondered, like, why did they never do, like, I guess they did if they put Final Fight characters in this game. I was wondering why they never put, like, make a fighting game out of Final Fight, or, you know, like, do a Street Fighter game where they had the Final Fight characters in there that you could play. But I guess they did. It must have just completely passed me by.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I didn't even know that game was a thing.
Wow. It's crazy. Like, and Final Fight's still one of my favorite Super Nintendo games to this day. I mean, it is a great side-scrolling beat-em-up, and of course it's Capcom as well. So Capcom always made, I mean, not always, they had some stinkers, but, you know, Capcom was a great publisher back in the day.
More often than not, their games were good.
Oh, yeah. So that's going to bring us to our midsection here. So, Derek, I'm going to let people tell you about books before we move into our review for this episode.
So for you, the listeners of the Nerd Cave Retro podcast, Audible is offering a free audiobook download with a free 30-day trial to give you the opportunity to check out their service. Over 180,000 titles. That's a lot of books in a lot of different genres. If you like autobiographies, they've got plenty of those. They've got gaming books from Halo, Gears of War, World of Warcraft, Mass Effect, romance, mystery, sci-fi, any genre you can think of, Audible has. And Audible's perfect whether you've got like a 10 or 20 minute commute to and from work, or if you've got to drive multiple hours on a road trip. It's a great thing to do to pass the time. If you're always on the go, it's a great thing to have.
I do want to say that there's a couple
Yep.
of new Han Solo Star Wars books that just came out. One came out on April 17th called Last Shot, which is all about Han and Chewie, Lando, and the droid L337. And then you have another book that just came out on the 25th called Star Wars Most Wanted. It was set before the events of Solo, A Star Wars Story. Han and Kira don't have a lot in common other than not having a lot. They're street kids on the industrial planet Corellia, doing whatever it takes to get by. And of course, they get a job, and They're on the same mission for the same unscrupulous boss. When the job goes disastrously wrong, Han and Kira are on the run. So that leads up to Solo, the movie. So I'm want both of these.
I've downloaded Last Shot, but I haven't started listening to it yet.
And look, everybody out there, it's for free. If you use our code,
Yeah.
you can get either one of those books right now for free. Last Shot is 11 hours and 11 minutes long. You know what? That's a lot of content for free. Star Wars Most Wanted is 7 hours and 55 minutes. That's a lot of content for free. Free.
Yeah.
Why you're
So
not
if you
doing
want to
it
do
right
that,
now, I don't get it. I just don't get it, Derek.
I don't know. I don't know. But if you want to do that, go to audibletrial.com/nerdcave. Again, that's audibletrial.com/nerdcave for your free audiobook and free 30-day trial.
And right now we're going to be talking about
Dun 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 dun. Oh, good intro song.
yes.
So this week I will be reviewing Spider-Man and Venom Maximum Carnage. It is a side-scrolling beat-em-up game for the Super Nintendo Entertainment System and Mega Drive/Genesis. It was developed by Software Creations and published by Acclaim Entertainment and its subsidiary LJN in 1994.
Oh, like LJN.
They do not have the best of reputations, but I did not mind this game.
It's good.
Now it does have its flaws, and I think part of that was due to user error, but I will get to that here in just a second. This was a game that I remember very briefly playing as a kid. I never owned it, but I do remember playing it at a friend's house once. Growing up, Spider-Man was my favorite Marvel, or even like just superhero characters in general. Spider-Man was always my favorite. I love the animated series from the 90s. Everything from the voice acting to the action to that badass intro song that they had.
Done by Green Jello, of all bands.
Mm-hmm. So anything Spider-Man, I would eat up totally. I do hate that I didn't play this game in more detail or just in more length of time. But I was happy to go back, and I thought I had this game, but I actually have a different one as far as the physical copy. So I had to download a ROM. And it's fun, but slightly frustrating in its own way. And the reason why I say that, for one, side-scrolling beat-em-up games aren't exactly my strong suit. So I died a lot. And there were times where I would get quite angry at myself and at the game. So the second level in this game, you're trying to climb up a building to get to the rooftop. I can't tell you how many times I died on that. Like, it was embarrassing.
Yeah, trust me, I know.
Because the controls, as far as like swinging when you swinging from webs, are a little difficult and a little frustrating. So there would be times where I would try to swing to another building. I would like hit something and then I would fall to the ground. And I would climb back up, try it again. Same thing would happen. And then Shriek would be shooting energy beams from the rooftop. And I would get hit every single time.
Yep.
But all in all, the interesting thing about this game, it was one of the few games that was actually based off of a comic book story arc. Usually with games like this, they just take the characters and they come up with an original situation. But it's actually based off the Maximum Carnage comic book arc, where Spider-Man and Venom team up to fight Carnage and other, a few other villains. But there are some heroes in it as well. I mean, like Captain America's there, Black Cat, Cloak and Dagger, Iron Fist. So this is packed with quite a few big names from the Marvel Universe.
Yeah. Well, I remember when this game came out, I still have the Maximum Carnage storyline, from the Spider-Man comics. Like, I loved Spider-Man comics when I was a kid, and the whole Maximum Carnage storyline was just, at the time, was just awesome. And I loved Carnage at the time. I mean, he was he was an atom bomb in Spider-Man's world. Like, you thought Venom was bad. Like, Carnage was just like, he was so bad that Venom and Spider-Man had to team up and be like, all right, let's put our differences aside and take this dude out, because he's going to destroy everything if we don't stop him. It was cool the way he was created. Like, if you go back and read the comic, he was cellmates with, what's his name? Brock?
Eddie Brock.
Eddie Brock. The suit breaks him out of jail, but a little bit is left on the bars of the jail, and it drips onto Cletus Cassidy's hand, which then turns him into Carnage. And Cletus Cassidy was already insane. And he was a total psychopath. Yeah, and then the he becomes one with the symbiote, and they just go on a whole rampage. So this was kind of it was a tie-in with the comic. It was a big deal at the time, because this was when, Marvel, this was right around the time that, Image had all the guys from Image had left Marvel, went and started Image, and, Image was just killing it around this time. Like, every book from Image was selling like millions of copies. Marvel was really struggling at this time. They only, kept a couple of the artists that were around at that time that didn't go to Image. And this was a really good storyline that they came up with at the time to kind of keep them afloat at that time. So it did really well. I remember this game coming out and being excited about the game. And it was a good game for the time. Even though it was an LJN game, it was really good. But, it kind of takes me back playing this game a little bit the last couple of days, like, because this was right square in the childhood here, and when I was in high school, when I was really in the comics and I wanted to be a comic book artist, and like, this was when I was really into comics at this time, like, Spawn and Image and, Spider-Man, everything. Like, the 90s were a great time for comic books.
Oh, absolutely. And, the 90s was when Venom was created. When you think of Spider-Man, because Spider-Man's been around since the 60s, you think of the old school villains like Green Goblin, Doc Ock, Sandman. Venom came along, I think, at the perfect time. Yeah. Because he was the anti-Spider-Man. Yep. Because he still had, his morals in a way. Like, you could, in a way, feel a little sympathetic to Eddie Brock. Yeah. But with Cletus Cassidy, he was Venom without a conscience. Yeah. And the fact that he could make, weapons out of his symbiote suit, like he could form an axe and actually use it, was really cool. And, Carnage was like the ultimate villain at that time, because you felt like, because I remember watching the cartoon, I was like, okay, Carnage could just mop the floor with Doc Ock and Green Goblin, Hobgoblin, all these guys. So to have that storyline that was centric around Carnage was really cool. And I didn't read that story, at the time it came out, but I have read it since then. And the fact that, they did a game based off of that, and even the cutscenes are basically the comic book on the screen, which I think works.
I mean, it took a lot of the Marvel Universe to take down Carnage, if I remember correctly. I mean, I haven't read the book in, 20-something years, but, I mean, it said Captain America's in the game, Black Cat, Iron Fist, Cloak and Dagger. Morbius, like all these people had to come in and help take down Carnage because he was just wreaking havoc on everything.
Yeah.
Like you said, Venom with no conscience, like even worse Venom. Like if you can imagine that, like because Venom kind of reminds me of we were talking about Cobra Kai, and Johnny is not necessarily the bad guy, but you could also like see how Danny LaRusso was his bad guy, and that's kind of like the way that Eddie Brock is. Like Peter Parker is kind of his bad guy. And you kind of sympathize. That's what makes Venom a great character. You kind of that's what makes good villains, is when you can sympathize with a villain. That's what made Black Panther so great. Killmonger, you could totally see where the guy was coming from. And you
could see why he was a little salty.
Yeah, exactly. So that's what makes some of the Marvel villains great. But yeah, like Carnage made a great villain because he was just a loose cannon, man. Like there was nothing stopping him once he became one with the symbiote. So I would love to see like an updated remake of this whole, like sort of a do a Spider-Man game, but make it kind of like the Arkham games. Like Arkham City and stuff like that. Wouldn't that be awesome to have a Spider-Man game where you have to team up with a bunch of people to take down Carnage? I think that would be awesome.
Oh, I'd love it. I would absolutely love it. But as far as the gameplay goes of this game, as I said, it's a side-scrolling beat-em-up. If you've played, Final Fight, Double Dragon, it plays exactly like that. The fighting is, the controls aren't very complex. To me, they're a little jaunty, especially when it comes to the web slinging, but other than that, it's very simplistic. It's kind of the side-scrolling beat 'em up genre is kind of the, what you see is what you get with it.
Yeah,
as far as the controls go. So
I didn't know this either. That it was the first Spider-Man video game to receive a teen rating, while the SNES release version had a rating of K through A. The Genesis version was rated MA13.
All because of Carnage.
Yeah. I didn't know that.
And it's kind of interesting because, when we were talking about Xanadu last week, you gave it a little bit lower of a rating than what the general reception was.
Yeah.
I'm going to give Maximum Carnage a higher ranking than what we're seeing here, because
really?
It says here, the reviewers of Electronic Gaming Monthly scored the SNES version a unanimous 5 out of 10, commenting that the appearances by other superheroes are cool, but outweighed by the sloppy graphics and mediocre control.
I didn't think the graphics were sloppy. Where are they getting that from?
It looks like a Super Nintendo game.
Yeah.
It looks like, or I'll say a 16-bit game, because it also came out for the Genesis, but it looked like it fit in with that era. I had no issue with the graphics.
Yeah.
I don't agree with that at all. Nintendo Power gave it a 3.45. Why they would be that specific, I have no idea. GamePro reviewed the Genesis port, saying that all the graphics, features, and fighting action are identical on the Genesis version. Unfortunately, so are the drawbacks that made this only an average SNES game. Game controls well, but is overly long and repetitive due to the player character's limited selection of moves, lack of objects to interact with, low variety of enemies. That I will agree with.
Yeah.
And the similar look to all the backgrounds. Yeah, I don't disagree with those, but I personally don't think that really took away that much from my experience with it. Like the variety of enemies, you can only fight, the same, thug named Tim or John.
That was, a product of the time too. You go back and you play Final Fight and you're fighting the same dudes over and over and over again. So, to ding it for that is kind of stupid.
Yeah. Yeah, I would agree with that. As far as the soundtrack, you guys heard the title theme. I really like the music. I think it fits perfectly. I didn't recognize it, but it says here an uncredited version of Black Sabbath's
Yeah.
"The Mob Rules" appears in the soundtrack.
I think that was actually on one up on the roof when they're on a roof.
The
Level.
rooftop.
Yeah.
Okay.
That was like what?
I'd have to go back and
3,
listen
I
to it
think?
again.
Like level 3 or something like that. I don't remember. I have to go back and play it again.
The
but
rooftop
yeah.
is level 3. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it's New York Street, then climb, then rooftop. Because that's
right.
where you fight Spider-Man's doppelganger and Shriek for the first time.
Yeah.
I'll have to go back and listen to it again. Because I mean, I wasn't thinking of it, so that might be why I wasn't, it didn't connect with me, but I'll have to go back and listen to that again.
Yeah, I wonder if Black Sabbath ever heard about that and sued LJN
Maybe.
for using that, or Acclaim for using that music without permission.
Who knows? But I don't know, I would give this game, I'd probably give it a 6.5 to a 7.
Cool.
I thought I wouldn't call it a fantastic game, but it's a little bit of my love for Spider-Man in there, but it's a fun, side-scrolling beat-em-up game.
Well, that's
and
all
it's got a good
really,
story.
That's all that you can really ask for this era of, like just the side-scrolling beat-em-ups, just a good mindless side-scrolling beat-em-up. You don't have to think about anything. You just go through and beat everybody up and see how far you can get in the game.
Exactly. But yeah, that's my thoughts on Spider-Man Maximum Carnage.
Awesome. I recommend it. I would love to actually find one of the red cartridges of this game because the first prints of the game for the Super NES and Genesis were sold in red colored cartridges. And I used to see these all over the place. And now I don't see them anymore. So I wish I could run across one and pick one up.
I found a Genesis one earlier today at a retro gaming store I looked at, but they didn't have the SNES one. Because that's the one that I want.
Yeah, that's one I want too. But yeah, I didn't know the later prints came in standard color cartridges. I thought they were all in red cartridges.
I did too.
It's weird.
Interesting.
Learn something new every day, right here on the Nerd Cave Retro Show.
Yeah.
So, anything else you want to bring up before we get out of here?
I don't think so. Just be sure to go check out the Derek Diamond Experience podcast. New episodes come out every Thursday on iTunes, Spotify, and all podcasting platforms. And you can follow the show on social media at D Diamond Podcast.
Oh, before we get out of here tonight, guess what? I keep forgetting that we've got a bunch of emails that we've got to go through. So let me put a little bed of music here for you. Yeah, there we go.
Sweet. So we've been talking about Final Fantasy, and we did a little bit of I won't say a rant, but we had some fun with Final Fantasy a couple of weeks ago. And this tweet comes to us from @SpoonyBardToma. You guys are so wrong about the FF series. For one, there is no continuity between games whatsoever. Each is a standalone title. Starting with 3 on the SNES Classic is a fine choice. Also, the only 2 games that were misnumbered are on the SNES. It's really not that confusing. If you want a truly confusing numbering system, check out the Chronicles of Narnia books. Cool.
I hope you listened to the last episode where we had Mr. Halam Akbar from San Diego. An entire paragraph of explaining the number system to Final Fantasy, and I'm still just as confused as ever. Even after that,
just a little bit.
Sorry, you guys. I know people get mad at us about that, but come on, man. Like, put yourself in our shoes and look at it from the outside, and just be like, okay, pretend I've never played a Final Fantasy game. Like, would I understand any of this? And the answer is no.
No.
Also from Derek Bryant on Facebook, he says, Mario Mega Man, Samus, and Donkey Kong are the poster children for Nintendo, referring to a thing I said about I thought Mega Man was just as much a poster child for Nintendo as Mario, and I said, come at me, bro, and he did, but he was agreeing with me, so there we go. The only Mega Man I couldn't get into was on the 64. I was a Nintendo kid through the SNES, but PlayStation came out before the 64, so I missed most of that Nintendo era. I only had one friend that had an N64. I never really played a lot of GoldenEye, but did play the hell out of Killer Instinct 2. I'm just now getting my 64 collection going. I kind of agree with him there. I didn't play a ton of N64, but the games I did play were great. Like I played Mario 64. I played, Resident Evil, things like that. I did not play Mega Man for the Nintendo 64, so I missed out on that as well.
Yeah, I vaguely remember that game. But not too much of it, no.
Yeah, I don't remember.
I mean, I knew there was one. I actually never played Killer Instinct 2. I do like the original for the Super Nintendo, but never played the sequel.
I remember playing it, but I think I played it on the PlayStation 1. Let me make sure that I'm almost positive that was on pretty much every system you could get. And if I could
I can't remember.
Instinct...
Because I want to say they might have been exclusive with Nintendo at the time.
Maybe, because it says Killer Instinct 2 for, I think it was the PlayStation 2. Yeah, it was for the PS2.
Oh, okay.
I think it came out for Xbox One. It doesn't say on here. I'm pretty sure it said just the PlayStation 2. I don't think it was on the PlayStation 1. Maybe I'm just misremembering. I do remember playing Killer Instinct, but I don't remember what system I played it on. Might have been the N64. I don't know.
Maybe.
If I could pull that
Maybe
memory
so.
out of my head, I would, but I can't. And I remember playing it with a friend of mine a lot because he used to play it. I had a friend of mine that worked at the mall, and he used to go and play Killer Instinct all the time at the arcade in the mall because they used to have Killer Instinct tournaments on Saturdays, and he would go every Saturday and enter the tournament. But I also remember playing with him on, it was either the N64 or PlayStation version, but it must have been the N64. But he did have a PlayStation 2. So maybe it was Killer Instinct 1 on PlayStation. Let me just double check. Killer Instinct PS1. It was made by Rare. It was an arcade game in '94. Let's see.
It was initially released in arcades.
Yeah.
Then
I don't
let's
think
see.
so. It was on the SNES. Maybe that was it. I'm thinking that might have been it, playing it on the Super Nintendo.
Yeah. Yeah, that'll be a game that, I'm going to review at some point in the near future.
Yeah. That's some weird memories going on. Sorry I took you down that weird road. I was just trying to pull that memory out of my head somehow. But for the next episode, I think I am going to go ahead and review Bloodstained Curse of the Moon because I really like that game. I'm probably about 3/4 of the way done with it at this point. I should be done with it by this weekend. So I will do a full review of that game next week.
Cool.
And maybe I can talk the company into maybe giving us some, if I review it, maybe they'll give me some codes to give out or something. Maybe tweet at them.
Maybe.
See what they'll do.
Yeah.
So anything else you want to talk about before we get out of here tonight?
No, I don't think so. I think I'm good.
Awesome. Well, go listen to the Pop Culture Palette over at PCP Show on Twitter and PCPRadio.com. Go listen to me and Derek talk about Zelda on part 2 of the Zelda Roundtable on the Derek Diamond Experience. Other than that, I think it's time to get out of here. So let me go ahead and play this. And if you would like to email us, you can email us at nerdcaveretro@gmail.com. We're at nerdcaveretro.com. We're on Instagram and Twitter at nerdcaveretro and individually at jfunktastic and at Derek_Diamond. And we're on Facebook at facebook.com/nerdcaveretro. So Derek, please tell them what it's all about.
May the way of the hero lead to the Triforce.
Wow.
Wow.
You've been listening to a Nerd Cave Network production.
Awesome sauce.
Wow.
Wow. So all the people that came in and out of the Twitch tonight, thank you guys for joining us over the last, 2 hours recording both of these episodes. And we will see you guys, I guess, at our regularly scheduled time after this episode comes out. We'll be back. I don't know, Derek, are we having a weird schedule again after that?
No, the rest of June will be fine.
Okay. June will be normal. So keep up with us.
Can't say the same about July, but
yeah.
June will be fine.
At Nerd Cave
We'll figure
Retro,
out July.
At Nerd Cave Retro, and we'll keep you updated on everything. So follow us over there. And thank you guys. And we will see you again next week. Bye.